ABP Framework is an open source web application framework. Its main purpose is to fill the gap between plain ASP.NET Core and enterprise application development requirements. So it consists of 4 fundamental architectures. The first fundamental architecture is domain-driven design, is a part of this talk also. It provides a startup template with layers based on DDD principles and patterns. It provides infrastructure for domain-driven design implementation, provides guides and documentation to properly implement it in your solution. It's modular. It actually started from first day as a modular application development framework. You can create reusable modules from database layer to user interface layer and share your reusable module across different applications, or you can split your monolith application to you can create your application in a modular way. The third important architecture is multi-tenancy. It provides a complete multi-tenant infrastructure, so you can create your own SaaS business on top of this infrastructure to serve a single deployment to your multiple customers. And it's also microservice ready. That means when you want to create a microservice solution on the ABP framework, all the features are compatible to microservice. And also it provides a lot of infrastructure like inter-microservice communication infrastructure for REST API calls between microservices or messaging between them. It also provides a lot of infrastructural enterprise application development requirements like a teaming system, detailed authorization system, distributed event bus, and many more. You can just visit ABP.io. I don't want to take your more time. I said it's modular framework, so it provides a lot of built-in modules. So you can just install the identity module to manage your users and roles. It's fully working from database to user interface and so on. It's integrated to identity server. There are a lot of free and commercial modules. You can check them. It also provides good startup templates. You know, when you create a new ASP.NET project, you have a plain project, and you should do a lot of work to make it production ready and usable in a business. So ABP startup templates are completely production ready and provides a lot of different UI and database options. We are also working on a UI team. It will be published soon. So this was my presentation about the ABP framework for who don't know it yet. Bige.
Bige, you are muted.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
Thank you so much, Halil. Okay, so I have some questions to ask all of you guys now. And first of all, what do you think are the main benefits of the ABP framework? And, you know, why should people use it?
Anyone in particular? Just chime in.
No, actually, we can all answer, please.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Well, first of all, I've used ABP on 2 projects now, and both of those projects have gone through to production, and it's saved so much time. So I think, like, from a benefits perspective, the #1 biggest benefit is that it allows you to get up to speed super fast with a whole bunch of best practices pre-implemented. So you can immediately start focusing on providing business value back to your customer. You don't have to worry about setting up your authorization, authentication, the creation of users. There's just so many features that you get out of the box. You get going so fast that I just think that's like the #1 hugest feature about it for me. But I mean, there's so many. Like, I could talk about the multi-tenancy. Like, if you're doing multi-tenancy, I feel like you have to use ABP. It's exactly how I would have implemented it, except I would have taken like a month to build it all. So that's just like absolutely huge for me. But then, you know, the auditing and the logging and so many things. I don't know. What about the rest of you guys?
Anto?
Yeah, I think it's the same for me. It just gives you a really good head start. And also setting up identity server with identity and the entire architecture is not easy. It's quite complex, and you have to, you should have gone through some pain points to appreciate what BP provides. And it just puts you like 3 months ahead, and then you just concentrate on what you need to build instead of like, how do I manage permission? How do I manage authorization? And how do I audit these endpoints? So all those things are taken care of. I just focus on what I'm building, and then yeah, it just removes obstacles, I would say.
Yeah, I know. I love that. I feel like so often when you're starting a new project, you're just looking at what's right in front of you, and you don't have time to necessarily look like what's a month in advance, what's a year in advance. But when you have a framework like ABP that you're building on top of, you've got the benefit of a lot of people who have given a lot of thought to not just tomorrow, not just next week, not just next month, but next year, and what your product is going to look like over time and how maintainable it's going to be.
And if you guys keep up with the .NET releases, that kind of helps as well. So as soon as there is a new .NET version coming on, you guys upgrade to it. So I can also upgrade my project and then keep it updated. And also if there's a new person coming in, the documentation is ABP's documentation. So we don't have to build our own documentation. We can just say, hey, the product is built on ABP. Just make sure you understand the ABP concepts, and you would understand what the product is, and I mean how to build the product.
Yeah. Additionally, when you are working in a big company, your manager doesn't care about the login stuff, remember me stuff, forget password thing, because they have a business and they see some real work in the first day. So you cannot say that I'm going to create a framework before our business logic starts. They think that you are consuming time by just making your developer mood good.
Yeah, when we first designed ABP framework, we thought a lot about this problem. You know, ASP.NET Core is really good on UI creation and API design. That's really perfect, but doesn't say anything about how to build your other layers. Yeah, because it's web layer, it's API design framework, and do it very good. ABP completes this scenario and explicitly declares that how to build the business layers. It provides infrastructure to help you to properly implement this architecture. So having this common architecture is important, because otherwise in every project I see similar but different architecture styles, different project structures, different relations between modules, and so on. ABP puts a standard, so everybody can rely on same patterns and principles. So a community becomes as a result. We have a big community developing application in the same way, so they can help each other very easily, because they understand each other's coding style and so on. I think the best value is that providing a standard architecture and a big community building the applications in the same way, so easily can help each other.
Yeah, that is. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jon.
Well, I have an interesting perspective on this, like working directly with the ASP.NET team and seeing you're answering questions that I see users, try and figure out and solve constantly themselves. And you can do it. Like you can go and you can look on Stack Overflow, or you can go and find NuGet packages, and you can put a system together, but there's no business value in doing that. So it's great to use a tested, like I see people in the comments saying like security testing and, like all those things where you have a community all working through something. So over my time as a developer, I've learned writing code for a company is not always a good business. Like, it's actually debt. You know, you have to maintain it. You'll have bugs in there. You'll have security vulnerabilities. There's no business value in that. So much better to start with a tested solution. You know, and when we build ASP.NET, it's we're building it for students, for new developers, for all, you know, for enterprises that have their own requirements, for people that are migrating from older versions of ASP.NET Framework, you know, .NET Framework. And so we have to build a very kind of simple, unopinionated system that's going to work for everybody. But for so many people, like if you're building something that having a prescriptive architecture really adds a lot of value right from the beginning. So you don't have to, so there's no reason for everyone to learn how to put together SaaS and a DDD based system and all these things, right?
Definitely, yeah.
And building off of Halil's comment about just the organization-wide benefits too, like at my company, I work for a consulting company. I should probably plug them. They're Inferno Red. They're a wonderful, small little consulting company here in the US. But I'm not the only person that's done ABP. We've actually got multiple teams that have done ABP. And it's a really nice benefit as a consulting company to be able to swap out individuals across multiple projects. And I imagine that, you know, from an organization's perspective, if you're not a consulting company, if you're an organization, having multiple teams that are all using a similar architecture, like you were saying, is also really huge. But yeah, we've been able to see those benefits directly. It's really nice.
Yeah, I saw a comment earlier from Miguel, and he was saying using the ABP framework adds to the learning curve. And I think not really, because every project does solve these sorts of problems. You know, you're going to solve, how do you handle database migration? You're going to solve all these things, and it's not going to be documented, and it's not going to be, you know, so every project is different, like Lee is saying, and it's so nice to have an actual documented prescriptive, like there's no reason that every team needs to solve the same problem slightly differently, you know? So yeah. I honestly see like there's potentially less of a learning curve because you actually have your security strategy like written down somewhere.
One hesitation that people sometimes don't want to use framework is that some frameworks are trying to abstract everything, but with ABP framework, from the first day we try to not do that, and yeah, it automates stuff. But you can always use ASP.NET Core or Entity Framework or any underlying library directly, so you can not stuck with the framework's API. You can always directly touch the underlying libraries and everything. You can do everything that's possible with ASP.NET Core. You can do it with ABP, so there is no restriction. This is also one point we are very careful about.
I'm going to add something.
Right.
Sorry, John, you can also. Okay, like using Angular is also making you extra effort with learning curve, but you also use it because you don't want to build a JavaScript framework library on your side. You don't want to create the same wheel again and again, or React or Vue.js. It's same for all frameworks. This is a software development issue.
Absolutely, and it's also it's not just about the documentation; it's also about the community, right? Like when you have a framework like this that has a lot of people blogging about it and doing videos on it, and I don't know if there's any TikTokers out there yet, but if you've got if you've got a big community of people that are all helping to flush out the edge cases and like figure out like, oh, how do I solve this particular problem, and then contributing it back even, that's just like a huge boost.
I'm actually blogging for my own documentation now.
Yeah. One thing too that I see is migration support, and I see both in the CLI and then also in your documentation migration guides. And we have docs for ASP.NET between every version, how to migrate from different ones. But what's really complicated with migration is when you've got all your dependencies. And so you can say it's easy to write it. Well, it's relatively easy to write a doc saying how do you move from ASP.NET Core 5 to 6, but then how do you do it with a database already there and security and front end dependencies and all these things, right? So I think that's also a huge unappreciated thing. I feel like sometimes at Microsoft we don't focus on that enough, because it's very easy to do file new project and write some code, but then how do you work with some code that was written 2 years ago and you update it? That's hard.
Yeah,
Yes.
Microsoft do it great actually for backward compatibility. Almost upgrading from 5 to 6 was very easy for us actually. It took time, especially replacing with new approach, but it was very easy. But from our side, actually, upgrading from Bootstrap 4 to 5 was really hard because ABP use many libraries in addition to ASP.NET Core. We are using Bootstrap on the UI, so this migration also was hard for us. What we are trying to do is to solve this migration problem for other developers. What I mean that in every version, we are upgrading all the libraries into the latest version. We are solving conflicts. We are migrating our code, and also we are offering easy migration paths to the community. So when you use ABP Framework, it will be more clear to see how to upgrade to new version and how to migrate your existing application.
All right. So,
Jon, you had some more question, I think, Jon.
I did have a few. One you kind of answered already, but you showed in the latest release the minimal APIs, and I'm curious what if there's how minimal APIs kind of fit in with future strategy, and then also how well you found the API, the minimal API system for extending. Meaning, like, I'm seeing people get a little worried or confused on how do you build a minimal API that isn't just one huge file with 4,000 lines of code in it,
Yeah.
So just curious your thoughts on minimal APIs so far.
Yeah, almost all examples are like hello world level. So when your application grows, actually, we should be careful. In ABP, we are already providing a layered structure. So in the web layer, you can still use minimal APIs, but you should delegate your work to the underlying layers. If you do that, that's not a problem. I actually liked the minimal APIs, especially for first learners of ASP.NET Core. For beginners, it's easier to understand and with low ceremony to start with. What do you think, Leah?
I don't have a lot of hands-on experience with minimal APIs yet, so I'm not gonna weigh in here.
Okay.
I think I used it to quickly test out some ideas. So for that, I think it's extremely helpful. So if I want to put together a small API, which I have done a couple of times, I think I also blogged about with the ABP, try to create a small ABP module with a minimal API. I would say there is a lot of benefits.
I think it's great if you have already a library do all the business and you just want to expose your endpoint in a fast way. I think it's great.
Yes.
So another thing it made me very happy to see how the module system is put together, both using middleware and then also just dependency injection and the way that it was all kind of constructed. I was wondering, have you had the right extensibility points you need? And are there some frustrating things in ASP.NET Core you wish you had where it would be simplified, the modules?
Yeah, that's really good question. I thought this before, and this is one of the most important things when you are trying to create a middle level framework like ABP framework. It's an application framework on top of ASP.NET Core, but you are building the application on top of that. Actually, I really like ASP.NET Core's extensibility points, like middleware system, action filters, model binders, and all other systems are well designed to be modular and extensible. I really like this. But in ABP, we go beyond the standard extensibility points to automate the things as much as possible. So sometimes we need to open ASP.NET Core source code and investigate to find a proper point to extend or override. Some of these structures are very internal, so are not documented because of their internal, and they are not considered to use it by an application. But as an application framework, we need them. So one problem we sometimes see that ASP.NET Core team makes some APIs internal and some methods private and non-virtual. So it won't be possible to replace or override these services. I understand they are doing that to reduce future breaking changes and stay flexible for internal design. With ABP, actually, we don't care about that. We are doing everything replaceable and overridable to allow the application developer maximum possibility to customize ABP's logic. Sometimes we are making breaking changes for undocumented APIs, to be honestly, but this is a cost of this flexibility as a result. That's a trade-off. So we are considering the ABP as a hackable framework, not by end users, surely, but by developers to do what they want to do. Yeah.
I will say that I've not. Oh, go ahead, John.
No. I've got 1,000 questions, so just go ahead.
As far as modules go, I will say that I have I have needed to get into them occasionally and fiddle with them, but I feel like as an end user of ABP, you need to know about the resistance. You know how to use them as a consumer, but you don't need to how to create them. You don't really need to know a lot of the details about how they work, other than just I want this module and I know that it's dependent on this, and maybe I'm picking up some other things in the process. But it's a really nice feature. It's just I don't think it's like critical knowledge that you know that much about it when you're getting into ABP.
Okay, excellent. So are there any questions? I guess not. Okay. Oh, sorry.
I had one more. I mean, if we're just random.
Sure, go
one
ahead.
other thing I feel like both from a modularity point of view, and then also talking about migration between versions, two things that I feel like we break or change way too often at Microsoft and with .NET are data and identity. I feel like EF has gotten a lot better over the past few years, and data has changed less. Identity, we've kind of changed our authentication, authorization systems over the years quite a bit, and that's usually some of the most painful parts of migrations and updates. And I'm just
in the past there were many identity system like membership provider and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And the last Microsoft Identity Library is pretty good, and we are building on top of that. But one missing stuff, actually, I wanted to say that the identity server situation, actually currently one important missing feature in ASP.NET Core is currently it cannot provide an endpoint token endpoint, a secure token endpoint to be used by single page applications. This is very pain point for currently .NET developers. Identity server was solving that problem, but it isn't actually paid now. There are not much libraries, to be honest. Currently, we are migrating from Identity Server to OpenIDICT. You probably know that OpenIDICT library. So we are trying to migrate this library with the ABP framework to solve this token authentication problem. Yeah, it would be very good if ASP.NET Core has such a feature. I think everybody wants that.
And we will be talking for them,
Yeah.
pass the information to you. Okay, so if there are no further questions, we can hop on to the next topic, which is domain-driven design. So I have one question for domain-driven design, which is almost the same with the other one. So what do you think are the main benefits of DDD?
Yeah, actually for us, building a more maintainable code base, a flexible layered solution structure, so maximizing and better organizing code reusability. If you especially have multiple applications, you can share same domain logic between multiple applications. And if you have a large business, if you split your business into bounded contexts, you will have more maintainable code base. And also abstracting infrastructures like database layer and UI layer makes your business implementation explicit, not mixed with infrastructure code. I think the main benefits are this. You want to add more?
For me, it provides the consistency. When you have a large team, a lot of people have a lot of ideas, and so it just forces people to be consistent. And because you are not going to write this code now, you will come back in 2 years, and you should know where are the things are. And I think it just provides the consistency alone provides the huge benefit for me. And as Halil said, it also put a good separation of concerns, which kind of makes you a good developer.
Even the junior developers obey the rules and they don't break anything in the first day.
Yes. And yeah, it just makes a really good development experience. Yeah, you know like where to touch to what to change, and then it kind of benefits as a team as a whole. It benefits a lot.
Yeah, it's like it's like the traffic lights in a city. If you obey the rules, you will not hurt, get injured. So DDD is something like that.
But when it's very hard to convince initially. That's what I thought. Like because as soon as they saw like 7 projects and they didn't see the benefit of it, but once they started using it, and when they come back to the project after 3 years, and then still they manage to figure out and then fix things and then move faster, that's when it hits them like, okay, it's actually useful. And then so when you start initially I can just do it simply in a minimal API. Why am I doing this? Yeah, it takes a while.
Yeah, that's why we have created a single layer application template for those who find it complex to start with.
Yes, as I said, you should have gone through some pain points to appreciate what ABP provides.
Are there any
yeah.
other? Oh,
It's
sorry.
like as Scott Hanselman says, it helps you fall into the pit of success, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that summarizes it. But I mean, you can also be more specific. You could say it's helping you with encapsulation and making sure that you've got good solid principles, that you've got single responsibility, and you've got your, just everything that is typically a good architecture is kind of set up for you. You almost have to work hard to fight against the right way of doing things.
I feel like it's you need some sort of structure. I see people talking in the comments about this and stuff. You're going to need some sort of structure, and having that right level of structure and having, like, as Ali says, a ubiquitous language, and just having there's no reason for everyone to solve these problems again. Or as Anto pointed out, like you forget what you did 3 years ago, and then you have to solve your own problem again, And so I feel like there's a balance where you need some sort of structure and a language to describe it. And then you don't want too much structure. And so I feel like you've kind of hit a nice balance where you've got, a nice documented structure. You've got it documented in your docs and also in the book, which I feel like you did a really good job describing the DDD principles in a way that it's enough information to be successful. It's not too much, it doesn't read like a textbook. It doesn't feel like too much structure just to be structured. It feels like structure to save you time and to keep things organized. And I was thinking about this, going through some of the tutorials, and when I do file new project, I'm always kind of thinking, where do I put the code? And the two parts of code I want to write first are some sort of UI. I want to know where I can, start putting words on the screen, and I want to know where I can create a model, where I can start describing data. And so I feel like you've got that pretty figured out for me. I can go straight to those points and start writing my code.
Just one real world example came to my mind. So imagine you have a big house and you have only one room, and you put everything inside this one room, your bathroom, your kitchen, everything in the same room. Does it sound good? No. So each room has to be properly designed for the use case. This is, I think, a good example for DDD.
I've worked on, projects in the past, financial projects and enterprise and stuff, and there's too much structure. There's so many, I remember one, I worked on an application and we had 37 different projects, 37 different, and this was back in the days where you had to register them as COM objects in IIS, and and then we rewrote this project into like one project with a few dozen files, and it's like, so sometimes people want too much structure, and I feel like this is kind of a good kind of balance where it's enough structure, like you said, it's not throwing it all in one room, but it's not way too much,
So maybe the next question is also, I think, did we answer this? When not to use it?
Yeah.
So if you don't need a hierarchically structured, layered application, and if you don't need a maintenance like for 10 years, you don't need to build such a complex stuff. It's like you don't need a lift if your house is just 2 floors.
Yeah, actually ABP helps on that. For example, you don't have to apply all the principles and patterns of DDD in your solution. You can just use repository and unit of work patterns and go with that. You don't have to create bounded contexts, or you don't have to put your logic in aggregates. Instead, you can just write your code into controllers if you want that. But it's acceptable for simple and short-term projects. Some projects are thrown away after a few months or maybe 1 year. But for serious applications, for if you want to maintain it for 10 years, and you should use, I think, a proper structure for your solution. And DDD is a good alternative for that, I think.
Yeah,
you just have to be real careful there, because one thing, like, I definitely agree. I wouldn't necessarily go down the DD path if I'm building a proof of concept, something that, my boss is like, oh, show me, build this out real quick and show me what it looks like tomorrow. Okay, maybe ABP, maybe DDD is not the right use case in that case, but you do also have to be careful, because prototypes turn into production code really easily. So I don't know, I guess just be very careful and think through what your code is liable to look like.
I want to add that, actually, the most overhead is to create the solution structure, determine all layers, providing some infrastructure to not repeat yourself. There are a lot of stuff to prepare your solution to be ready for DDD development. So ABP actually do all these things from the first day. So starting for simple applications, starting with DDD is not actually much overhead. We are actually building even simple modules with DDD principles, and we don't lose time, actually. Lee is right. Most simple and short-term applications becomes long-term solutions in real life.
Yeah. The manager says, "Hey, this looks good. Let's ship it."
Yeah.
I asked for a prototype. You wrote all the code. Why would we rewrite it? Yeah. It's funny, the community stand-up webpage is an example of that, where we James, my manager, and I, like, we co-wrote that, and we did it as a prototype because we wanted to show them, hey, here's what we want you to build, and so we threw it together. We used Blazor, we used, we like just pair programmed it, and then we said, hey, we'd like to have this live by, I forget, it was Build or .NET Conf or something, and they didn't have time, and they said, let's just ship it. And so we actually did ship it, and so, like, now when I see the code, I'm like, oh, I wrote this code. And we actually did put in some testing and some, so I was glad when we made those choices. I'm curious, and thinking about that partly, as how well, if I write code that's not strictly DDD, like I write it with ABP, but I don't think about DDD, how easy is it to refactor and improve the DDD quality over time? I'm curious too, like Lee, having shipped some production applications and stuff.
Yeah,
Easy.
yeah, easier. I think with ABP easier, but in general, it depends on how which level of DDD you want to implement. Because, for example, as I said before, in DDD you should put your logic into aggregates and entities as much as possible. You should create domain services and clearly separate domain logic and application logic. If you haven't implemented all these rules and made everything under controllers or under even application service, then it's not easy to refactor and make it fully DDD compatible. But it's much more easier with ABP, because in ABP, even if you don't want, you will implement unit of work, repository patterns, application services, DTOs, and so on by default. So it will be much more easier to apply other rules later.
Yeah, I've had to really rethink large sections which are having performance problems. Though, often it's you write something and it's like, okay, this solves the problem, but now once we start putting production data in here, the performance starts going bad real fast. And so you have to really rethink, like, oh, well, maybe I've got an N+1 selects problem here, or maybe I've got, like multiple different things where we got, things that aren't going very well. And I've found it very easy to be able to switch into stored procedures if I need to, or just like I know if there's code that needs to be moved around closer to the database, I know where to do that easily in the ABP, and that's really been really powerful.
Excellent.
The same for me. You can easily take the DB context in the entity framework if you want to, and then do your own things.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so are there any further questions, or would you want to add some more?
I think for DDD it's okay. We can go to next topic, because we have 1 hour shortly.
A little bit exceeded.
Yeah, it will be a 1.5 hour, I think. We can continue with the EventHub solution. I may continue with that. Actually, this topic is this day we have 3 important topics. The DDD discussion was one of them, and I will introduce EventHub solution. It is one of the 3 topics here. It's related to DDD. I will share my screen. Okay. When I am authoring the ABP book, I added many examples in the book, but I thought that it will be good to create a reference application that implements domain-driven design truly with the ABP framework. It will be good for all the ABP developers and the readers of the book. So, but developing all the real-life application in a book, it's impossible. So I have created an open source repository on GitHub for this project, and by the help of our development team, we have created a reference application. So you can check its source code on GitHub/Volosov/EventHub. Its source code is explained briefly in the Mastering ABP Framework book, since this project is created mainly for the book. It's taught as a real-world live application. It's actually live. I will show the user interface later from this presentation. And it's configured to run with Kubernetes and also with Projectile, Microsoft's library, Microsoft tool actually, to run multiple applications with a single command easily. It consists of multiple applications. The solution is a big solution actually, to be real life scale. It consists of two applications. The first application is built with ASP.NET Core Razorpage, MVC architecture, server rendered HTML. So the EventHub solution is to organize events like meetup.com. This is the main website is used by end users, and we have an admin application built on Blazor WebAssembly. We have an authentication server built with Island server. These are three different applications served in three subdomains. And we have two endpoints for these applications, HTTP API endpoints. And also we have a background service, a console application to send emails, an event is approaching email and so on. An email for when you register to an event. I will show the user interface. The solution structure is a bit more complex than the startup template. You can see we have separation for admin, the main website, and some common libraries to make the domain layer shared across different applications. With DDD, application layer and domain layer separation is very important. When you add your code to domain layer, it's shared across different applications, so you don't repeat yourself your code in different applications. But if you put all logic in to application layer, then you will have to duplicate it when you have a new application. So it provides two application layers, one for each application. The most complex entity is the event entity in this solution. This is the aggregate root with title, some description, start and end date of the event, like capacity and so on. An event is a complex object, and an event can have tracks to organize parallel sessions. So every track has multiple sessions, and every session can have multiple speakers. So this is the aggregate, event aggregate. So it's a complex example, and you can investigate its source code to understand how it is implemented. I cannot show the source code for the time limitations. We may create an event for that in the future. So let me show the user interface of this project. Sorry. Yeah, it's served on openEventHub.com. You see the approaching events. When you click an event, you see the attendees. You can join the event. Then you are notified when the event approaches. There is a description. There are also organizations organizing the events. For example, I have created an organization here, named ABP Community. It's organizing events. You see past events and upcoming events here. There are members to this organization. I can create events, set all the properties, set tracks and sessions and so on. So it's a real world application. Actually, you can even, this project even have a payment module. Like we can upgrade to premium account to have more rights to use the application and so on. We have also a WebAssembly admin site. This is used to manage the system by administration users. So we can see events, organizations, and members here. We can also see pre-built ABP modules like role management, user management, and so on. This is WebAssembly project. And we already also have account.openEventHub.com. This is the single sign-on server. So as I want to understand, this is as I want to explain, this is a complicated solution and it's a real-world solution. So you can check its source code to understand how it is implemented, and you can also buy the book, so it explains how the source code is structured. Okay, that's my presentation for the EventHub solution. Bige?
Yeah, thank you so much, Halil, for the thorough demo and introduction for the EventHub solution. So your last words were actually our next topic, which was the Mastering ABP Framework book. And I have a set of questions about the creation process of the book, naturally to you, Halil, the writer of the book. So why did you write such a book? You know, how did you come up with the idea of writing a book?
Yeah, actually, the idea came from Peck Publishing, a famous publishing company. From Aaron Tana, from this company, came me from LinkedIn. If you want to create such a book, we thought that a formal official guide would be good for ABP and .NET developers. You know, the documentation is mainly written by me, actually, for ABP documentation. So documentation is a great reference for every feature of the ABP framework. So you can refer to the documentation for all the details. However, the book takes you from the beginning, explaining all the concepts and features in a correct order, and gives you a good understanding of the ABP framework and its philosophy. Also, documentation is focused on ABP framework, while the book also discusses .NET, and general software development best practices, alternative approaches, and many more. So I thought that writing a complete book could be a good idea for developers, and that's how we started to write this book. And it takes almost 1 year to complete it. It was a long journey. It took 10 months, and it is 500 pages currently in the last version.
Excellent. Thank you for your effort to put this together. I'm sure the readers would benefit from it a lot. Okay, so for all of you guys, because I know you already looked at the book, so you have some ideas, especially, you, Lee, because I remember you posting a picture with it. So what was the parts that you liked the most, that you think people would benefit the most? I think
Sorry.
yeah.
Got to find the mute button. It's just a great overview of a variety of different topics. But the explanation of what DDD is and how ABP's version of DDD, how they view it, because it is kind of a big topic and has some room for opinion. So how that gets approached is really interesting. How you can work with the multiple different front ends. And just just all of those little edge cases that you might not have discovered, the benefit of reading a book is always that you're learning all these things that you might not have learned just from reading blog posts or from other mediums. You really become a master. So yeah.
I really appreciated also the DDD explanation. I thought it was very practical, and it came across as it was approachable and practical, so I appreciated that. I've read some DDD things in the past. We talked about this earlier a little bit, but I've been a little put off by it being too textbooky, and and I felt this was very kind of hands-on in a way that made sense to me. I also really liked the front end part, talking about working with MVC and Razor pages. Including some things like I wasn't aware of all the options in the bundling and minification system and all the work that's gone into theming. So there were some things I learned from that I just didn't even know were features. So
For the bundling and unification, actually, I was expecting from .NET team to inspire from this because .NET's bundling and unification system is a little bit missing.
Yeah.
And actually, we are trying to make it mostly automated with the ABP framework. I see .NET team is completing these features by the time. I don't remember the example, but maybe in the last .NET 6 release, it completed some missing features. So we removed the feature from ABP framework because ASP.NET Core already has built-in. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah, we use an outdated bundling minification package on the .NET website, and it's frustrating to me because some of it I can't run on a Mac, and it's like I want to update it. So yeah, I was kind of jealous seeing what you've got.
I think it's one thing .NET team don't want to get included this problem and makes temporary solutions and leave to developers. They're actually right because it requires a lot of opinion. Like ASP.NET Core is not opinionated framework, but it requires opinionated decisions. So you are leaving it to developers mostly.
I thought the authorization section was really helpful too, because it can be a little bit overwhelming there's a lot of different moving bits and pieces. And I think it's really helpful to get a good, strong concept of how, if you want to limit access to different sections of your site, the best way to go about that.
Yeah, and the data filters was really useful. How the multi-tenancy data filter works.
Yeah,
it was properly explained. I think most people don't get it. Like, okay, which tenant am I in? How is it figuring out? Which tenant is supposed to be this data? It was very clearly explained. And I also kind of like the UI part of it because I don't do so much UI in ABP. I only use it for the APIs. So to see like how much things you can do with the Blazor and also with Angular is really helpful.
Okay, we can go to the next.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. So if you can, Halil, can you show us a little context about the book, about the outline, real quick?
Let me show. I want to show briefly two sections of the book, chapters of the book actually. Just a minute. It consists of 17 chapters. I want to go fast, don't worry. The first part starts with defining the problems and challenges of software development and explains how ABP framework helps that. In the second chapter is short and it just starts how to install tools and start with ABP framework. The third part is similar to the 10-part tutorial on the ABP documentation. It's more extended actually and with a different example. So it's one of the most long chapters of the book. The chapter 4 is related to the EventHub solution. It explains the solution because we are referring to this EventHub solution in the later chapters of the book. The second part of the book is related to fundamental structures of the ABP framework. It starts from exploring not only ABP framework, also ASP.NET Core concepts like dependency injection system, configuration, and options pattern, which are actually provided mostly by the ASP.NET Core, but ABP makes it a little bit easier. The chapter 6 is related to data access. It's mainly related to Anto Framework Core and MongoDB integration, as well as it explains how unit of work system is used and how it is working. The chapter 7 is related to cross-cutting concepts like validation, permission, and exception handling. The chapter 8 shows some common application development features of ABP framework. And the part 3 is similar to my free DDD book, but it's completely rewritten based on the EventHub solution. So it consists of 3 chapters. In the first part, we are understanding what is domain-driven design and how to organize your solution structure, and why we have designed the project structure like that with the ABP framework. Chapter 10 is related to domain layer, and the 11 is related to application layer concepts. The part 4 is for user interface development mostly, with MVC and Razor Page and server rendered HTML features of the ABP framework. The chapter 13 is related to Blazor Web Assembly UI. Actually, Blazor server is very similar, since most of the infrastructure and other structures are usable in Blazor server too, but I want to focus on Blazor WebAssembly here. And chapter 14 is related to building HTTP APIs and using SignalR for real-time communication. The last part of the book consists of 3 chapters, like modularity. This is one of the topics not covered deeply in the documentation. Actually, it explains how to create modular applications and how the payment module developed and installed in the EventHub solution. Then we continue with multi-tenancy and automated testing. That's all. It's around 500 pages, the book. Yeah, that's all. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So before we wrap up here, I'd like to add some information about how to access the Mastering ABP Framework book. And I also want to thank, again, our sponsor, Pact Publishing, because they gave us, they gave you 25% off on the book, which would be valid until May the 7th of 2022 on Pact. And they also have the same discount code applicable on Amazon US, but that is going to be valid until April 21st. So with that said, if you become an ABP commercial user, Mastering ABP Framework book is included in all license plans. So you can go ahead and be commercial user and you will, get the book in your hands. But if you want to buy only the book, that's okay too. You can purchase it from Pact or Amazon. And as I mentioned before, it is 25% off with Pact. And well, we know we had a giveaway campaign on Twitter for 3 copies of the Mastering ABP Framework paperback book. And the winners will be announced after our Q&A session. For our Q&A session, I'm gonna
Alper, you can continue with questions, I think.
Yeah, actually, we answered many of the questions. And the last question was also answered, I think. This one, where people can get the PDF version. Bigge explained it. I think we have answered many questions here because I was checking and scanning the questions. This may be like
one question. For example, can you use Dapper with ABP?
Yeah, I answered him in the chat. I shared the documentation link. Yeah, we have a Dapper integration and documentation about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw you were being pretty active on the chat side, so I guess we don't have any questions uncovered in there.
Yes, Halil.
I've got a small question.
Okay, I think you answered all questions there.
Yeah.
So,
Don't worry, I've got a lot of questions.
Okay, we have 10 more minutes for questions.
I'll make it short.
Yeah.
One thing that I find both with writing documentation and creating sample projects that aren't just trivial like EventHub is that then I see bugs or missing features in the product. So I'm curious if while you were writing both the book and working with EventHub, if there are features in ABP that you saw you wanted to improve, or if that drove any changes in ABP.
Definitely we made. I don't remember all, but when we create a real application ourselves, we see some missing features. We see not missing features mostly, but we think that it would be easier for developers.
Mm-hmm.
We can automate them and so on. We added a lot of features while developing this solution. Actually, yes, that's right.
Good. I know that's something we see with ASP.NET when we're writing docs or workshops or things, and we'll say, this is way too much work, this is terrible. And
also whenever I write a documentation for a feature, I create a lot of backlog items. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
There are also a number of times as a reviewer, I was like, this isn't working quite right. And Halil was so kind to not just be like, this is how it was designed. He would actually go back and take that feedback and then feed it back to the team and then fix it. And so rather than adjusting the book to match the code, he adjusted the code and the book. It was really cool.
Yeah, one feature I remember that Lee commented that why we are manually setting tenant ID while creating a new entity. We left it to developer for some reasons. We thought a lot of. We thought a lot about that, and we couldn't find a way to set tenant ID automatically. But after Lee's comments, we thought much more and tried to make it automated, and we made it finally. Now it's not needed. We rescue from one line of code to developers.
I'm going to add something. In IT, there is a slang word, dog fooding. So it means using one's own product. ABP websites, all the ABP websites are built on top of ABP with the latest preview version. So before reaching to the end users, we are first experiencing the stuff on our side.
Also, our documentation website is built with ABP, support website is built with ABP, payment gateway and everything is built with ABP. So we are heavily testing it actually.
Okay, well, I have
one question is, what is the current state regarding Identity Server? I can answer to this question. I already actually answered a bit, but we are currently announced that we will drop Identity Server support by end of this year. We will continue to ship packets to backward compatibility, but we are currently creating OpenID integrated solution for token-based authentication and OpenID Connect flows. So I believe in a few months it will be ready. Maybe in the 6th or 7th month, the OpenID integration will be completed and usable.
I'm going to share an issue. If you want to track the latest situation of this, we have an announcement here to plan to replace the Identity Server. So we explained why we came to this level, and we will announce the latest versions. Also, the owner of Identity Server is shared some ideas here. So this topic is dedicated to Identity Server and maybe the future of authentication mechanism for .NET users. We will try to find a way to make it free for everyone.
excellent, thank you. So I guess that will be all. We have 4 minutes left. If you want to add something, otherwise we can, finalize this episode of.
Jon, you are asking good questions. Do you have more?
What was your favorite chapter to write of the book?
I think the last page.
It's funny. I was going to guess it was the miscellaneous section. I know when I wrote books, those are always kind of like, you have to write the basics, you have to cover things. But some of the things you wrote, like on modularity, or some of those things might have been.
Yeah,
fun.
modularity was good, and also DDD part is 3 chapters. Is really I like the result. Multi-tenancy also I like writing this chapter. So it's my child. I love every chapter.
Well, congratulations again. It's a huge accomplishment.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a huge work. It took almost all weekends in this 10 months. So it was very stressful and hard work.
Yeah, I've written a few. It's
and thank you, Lee, for reading all the details, giving a lot of suggestions. Maybe one chapter I completely rewritten after Lee's comments. Lee was very objective technical reviewer. Yeah.
Nice way of saying a pain in the butt. Yeah, I'm happy to help.
Excellent. Okay, well, if you have more questions, we can,
I think we can finish.
Yeah, we can finalize. I have scheduled
tired.
questions.
Yeah, but if you have more, we can come together on another episode if you want. So we can do that.
We'll see.
Yeah, we will see.
That was an invitation. So, okay. Well, thank you all for participating in this episode of ABP Community Talks, especially to our guests, Jon Galloway, Lee Richardson, Anto Subash. And, well, I want to say, guests again, Halil and Alper, thank you so much for being with us today.
Okay.
And
bye-bye. So.
Yeah, well,
Thanks
we have
for watching us.
Before we wrap up, because we have the winners.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, Tariq Al-Kathiri, Vidur, Ahmet Ural, Ahmet Jodur, Rian Devet. I'm sorry about my pronunciation. Please be sure to, hop on to.
And you even don't know where are the guys are from.
Yeah, well, if you are in here right now, please be sure to contact us through our Twitter DM. Since the paperback is only available for shipping in the United States, the United Kingdom, Canadian region, and European Union, we've selected 6 people. So we will send over an ebook to the people who are outside of this area. And, well, of course, we will contact you guys on Twitter. And, if you're here, please be sure to contact with us. Well, okay. Thank you all again so much for being with us today. If you have more questions, we can do one more of these or a lot more of these if you want to. It was pretty awesome for me. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a nice one. Bye-bye.